Hello everyone. My name is Steve Flanders. I'm here to talk to you today about the importance of logging and analyzing all of the log messages within your environment. A very important topic. I'm actually part of the Log Insight team at VMware. I lead the customer-oriented R&D group, so I will be talking about some things related to Log Insight, but I want to make this very generic and talk about logging in general in your environment, why it's important, why you should be doing it. Doesn't matter if you're using Log Insight or not, that's not the point. The point is that these log messages are really critical to getting deep into problems in your environment, changes being made in your environment. It's a good way to find out what's going on and why it's happening. I want to talk about that with you today. So first off, why are logs important? Well, logs are important for a variety of reasons. Probably the number one reason is troubleshooting and root cause analysis within your environment. So think about it for a second. I don't know how many of you have ever opened a support case with some product that you own. Maybe it's VMware, maybe it's your storage array, your networking device, but you probably opened it up and you said you're having a problem. One of the first questions you typically get asked are, well, where's the support bundle? So you generate a support bundle, you upload it to them, and they look at it. Well, what's in that support bundle? 90% of the information in there is log files. The log files tell you every action that happened, who did the action, what went wrong, what worked, all of it's in there. They're typically not going to look at things like, I don't know, VCOps or vFoglite, Nagios, Zabbix, your other monitoring tools. The support organization that you're dealing with won't typically care about. You will, because it's telling you a bigger picture about your entire environment. It's telling you about the problems that you care about for your specific environment. But it's not helpful to Cisco to troubleshoot your Nexus gear. It's not helpful to NetApp to fix your storage array. It's not helpful to VMware to fix what's going on with vSphere. The log messages are what's important. So if you're using a log analysis tool, if you're collecting the logs in your environments, then you can do some of this yourself. You can be proactive instead of reactive to issues in your environments. And you're going to be using the same tools or similar tools that these support organizations are using. So this is just another tool in your arsenal, another monitoring solution for you, but it's one that actually should drive home because it's the one that other support organizations are going to be using for you as well. So that's number one. Number two, what about who's logging in and who's making what changes, like security, auditing, compliance information? Again, that deep, rich information is typically available in log messages. vSphere, for example, does a very good job of logging who logged in, from what source, what the destination was, and even what client. Were they using the vSphere client? Did they SSH in? Are they using a web request? All that's available in the log messages. So again, you can track that information. You can display it if you have a good user interface, a good way of analyzing the log files that you're collecting. But you can't do that in a lot of other monitoring type solutions. It's a lot harder. SNMP Traps is not going to get you that information. Log files will. A third use case kind of related to the security and compliance would be configuration management, change management in your environment. Who made a change? When did it change? Did things start breaking after that change? Again, that kind of audit trail is available in log messages. Sure, an SNMP trap will tell you if something fails. An SNMP trap might tell you if something changes, but it's not very good at telling you who did what necessarily. Log messages can tell you all of this. So logging is critical, and not just in one location. Like individual components log a lot, but your whole environment logs a lot, and that correlation is kind of key to the bigger picture. And that's kind of step two. What are in these logs? Everything. Everything's in these logs. Literally, I can follow a user throughout my stack. If a user logs into Active Directory, I'm going to get a log message. When they go RDP into a session, I'll get that. When they use SSO from VMware through Active Directory, I'm going to know about that. So I can literally follow a life cycle. You hopped, you jumped on a jump box, you VPN'd in, you went on the command line, you logged into the Linux box. All of that's going to follow you with you, and I can track you down as a user, find out where you went, at what time, for what reason, and what you changed. It's pretty cool to see the workflow. So a lot of rich information. Now, a lot of what I'm talking about is called unstructured data, log files, unstructured. What the other monitoring tools like Zabbix or VCOps, vFoglite, they care about more metrics. So give me CPU information, give me memory information, give me disk utilization. We call that structured data. And then they try to provide you an algorithm that tells you generically what that means across systems, because it means different things for the storage array than it does for the network array than it does for your virtual machines. But log data can be structured too. JSON string, for example. Logging tool can handle JSON. SMP traps, that's kind of structured data. You can handle that in a logging tool. HTML, XML. You could even pull stats and metrics, top data, directly into a logging tool and treat it like a quote-unquote log message. So while logs do focus a lot on the unstructured aspect, the structured aspect is key as well. Next up, what logs to collect in your environment? I've kind of hinted on this a few times. Don't think about the individual component that you're responsible for. If you're the vSphere admin, you probably care about the vSphere logs, but that shouldn't be the end goal. You should also care about the network logs and the storage logs and the OS logs and the application logs. Now, I understand that those are different teams and you may not have that access or ability, but if you have a common logging platform for everyone in your entire organization, then you can really do true troubleshooting and root cause analysis end to end. So if you have a problem in vSphere and you're like, all right, it's a storage problem, you track it down and you're like, all right, well, vSphere seems to be healthy. What do you do next? I go call up the storage team. And I say, storage team, I think there's a storage issue. Can you go take a look? They'll go take a look at the environment. They'll come back to you and they'll say, everything checked out fine. Okay, well, now we're kind of pointing fingers. I clearly see a problem. I don't see it on my end. It looks like it's on your end. You're saying it's fine. So what do I do? Do I stop there? Well, if we had logs end to end, we could be like, well, not only do I see that there's a vSphere problem, but I also see that on my VMax, a director went down. There's direct correlation here, right? I have end to end. So I call up the storage team and I'm like, hey, there's a problem here. Sorry about that. There's a problem here. And I can confirm that I see issues on the storage array. And the storage team will be like, well, I wish I could see those logs. Well, you can. Give them access to this logging tool as well. Then you can see complete end-to-end connectivity. If there's a networking problem, you can do the same thing with your network devices. So what I like to refer to this as is a core sample. Give me end-to-end knowledge about everything in my environment. If you only worry about your particular aspect, you can only get so deep. You can only get so much troubleshooting and root cause analysis. You can only get so much security and auditing information. You only get one piece of the puzzle. So I really like this visualization here, basically being like, get everything from anywhere, no matter what it is, and bring it into a logging tool. Now, this is a Log Insight slide, but replace Log Insight with any logging tool. The idea is you should be thinking bigger picture. You should be thinking your whole environment. And when you get all of that information into a logging tool, you can do a lot of things. You can solve problems faster. You can work together with the other teams. And you can really get to the end game of fixing problems in your environment, hopefully proactively instead of reactively. All right, so some common misconceptions about logging. One common one I hear is that it's very hard to configure logging in an environment. Right? I have so many different devices. My storage arrays, I can't install an agent on them. My networking switches can't install an agent on them. Windows doesn't support syslog natively. Linux is pretty good. It has like syslog ng, rsyslog. But let's say I want to do more advanced things, even on Linux. I want to monitor static log files that I generate myself. That can be hard. What if I have to deal with multi-line messages? So I have Java stack trace exceptions in my log messages. How do I handle that? Well, a common logging tool will treat each line as a new message. But a stack trace could be 100 lines. It's actually one message, but it's 100 unique lines. And it's hard, even with Linux agents, to fix this multi-line problem. So I can understand that aspect. And people are trying to solve this in different ways. So for Log Insight, for example, we introduced a Windows agent. Why? Because we want to give you complete end-to-end support of your environment so you're not dealing with other third parties. We want to provide the ability of handling these hard things such as multi-line. There's a command line option, a configuration option, sorry, that allows you to handle multi-line messages very, very simply and easily. And some of these agents are very powerful. Syslog ng and rsyslog are bound to the rules of syslog. At the end of the day, they're sending an event over the syslog protocol. But that's not the only way to collect logs in your environment. You should be able to collect them any way you want. What if you don't have syslog? What if you want to collect NetFlow? Well, you could convert it to syslog, but that's no fun. What if you want to collect JSON? You could convert it to syslog. That's no fun. So some of these tools offer their own ingestion API. Log Insight has this as well. Basically, we give you a JSON string that you can send to us, and we'll ingest it just like it came over the syslog protocol. We'll give you all the same functionality. You can set fields. You can tell us what you want to monitor, what you don't want to monitor. You can handle multi-line messages. But the important thing to note is that there are a lot of tools out there that are extremely flexible. syslog agents themselves are extremely flexible. All the things that I'm talking about that I'm saying are hard are entirely possible with our syslog and syslog-ng. You just have to know how to do it. And I have some blog articles on this. If you're interested in more information, I have links at the end that I can show you. So one way that LogInsight makes this easier is they have deep integration. One of these integrations is with vSphere. LogInsight will reach out to vSphere, and it will configure your host to log to us. This is one solution to the problem, right? In addition, it'll actually go into the vCenter server database and collect events, tasks, and alarms, and ingest them like they're syslog messages. In case you didn't know, events, tasks, and alarms are actually stored in the vCenter server database. So this is doing database extraction, and you're doing database analysis in a logging tool. Again, going beyond the realm of syslog. Another thing is this whole agent configuration I was talking about. If you use specific agents with logging tools, you can get more advanced features, like now I can find out stats from that agent. Now I can push configuration files to that agent, all natively from one location. Alternatively, you'd have to have a configuration management tool like Puppet or Chef or CF Engine or something else. If you have those tools, if you're comfortable with those tools, there's nothing wrong with that approach. It's fine. If you don't, these are other ways around that problem. Let's give you central configuration management in the logging tool itself. Pretty cool stuff. Another common misconception here, and I'll explain this picture in a second, is that syslog can be really, really chatty. These events that you're sending, they're going to saturate your network. I've heard this from many networking people being like, we have 20 data centers, we have 10,000 devices, we can't send it all over our WAN, we're going to crush our WAN connectivity. It's a complete myth. So while there's a lot of log messages, and I'm talking you could be generating over a terabyte a day of logs, the actual bandwidth traffic is very, very minimal. As an example, LogInsight, a calculator was just released very, very recently, and for a full-size LogInsight cluster at max ingestion coming in, we're talking about 0.04 gigabits a second of network traffic. That's across every one of your data centers, right? It's not like one data center is sending 0.04. That's your entire environment sending 0.04. I hope your WAN can keep up with that, right? And we're not talking a lot of traffic here. It's very, very minimal. So you shouldn't be holding yourself back because you don't have the infrastructure for it. Now, what it does consume is a lot of storage space. For most people, storage is pretty cheap, so that shouldn't be an issue. And it really comes down to business requirements. How long do you want to retain this data? The longer you want to retain it, the more storage space you need. So that's where you really need to put the effort in. Make sure you have the IOPS to actually query the data off the disk, and make sure you have enough space to retain the logs for as long as you care about them. That's the most important aspect. Now, one other key thing or misconception is, well, I'm so concerned about storage space, I'm going to cut down the verbosity. I'm only going to send the errors. Unless I get an error message, I'm not sending it. But the problem with that is you really can't do troubleshooting and root cause analysis with just error messages. Okay, it failed. Who changed it? Where's the change? Those are usually in info messages that you're not sending. So you don't get a complete picture. At the end of the day, you're like, all right, I got an error. Now I have to go log into that device and go look at the logs there, probably on the command line, using like bash or set or awk. If you're better at it, Perl, PHP, some other scripting language. But it's all manual. That's no fun. The idea is you should be able to forward all your logs at the natural verbosity level. You should even be able to turn it up if you need to. And it shouldn't impact your environment. It shouldn't saturate your network. Your logging tool should be able to handle it, and you should be able to get results very, very quickly. That's what some of these logging tools provide, LogInsight, of course, being one of them. So I talked about a few different resources here. I talked about the ability of configuring agents. I have a link up here for you. I talked about the calculator, or I showed a screenshot of that calculator. That's freely available for people to try out if you're curious. Now, of course, with calculations, everything's an estimation, and your environment may be different. We don't know how many events per second, but we know a good average. So we plugged in some numbers for you there. You can take a look at that. And then one final thing is I actually have a lot of information on LogInsight specifically, but I also talk about logging anything generally, and there's a central page for this on my blog that I encourage you to take a look at and provide feedback on. Thank you so much for the time. Any questions? Thank you.